Reform Bill.
I call the honourable member Ian Lees-Galloway.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It's interesting to follow on from that contribution from Sandra Gowdy, because in her short contribution, she, I suppose that the bulk of the content of that speech was about improving the efficiency and reducing waste and reducing the cost of the state sector, which are all... Sorry? Well, it is true that Labor took a public sector that had been cut back to its absolute bone and actually put a little bit of meat and muscle on the public sector again. I don't think there's much fat that can be trimmed from the public sector, but a public sector which is stripped back to its bone is not capable of running efficiently. And I think Labor had an excellent track record of restoring and rebuilding the public sector. It wasn't nearly the size that it was when National first started taking the knife to it in 1990. And in fact, all that Labor did was to restore it to a reasonable size and to make it effective and efficient once again. In fact, it is regarded as being so effective and efficient internationally that rating agency Standard & Poor's said that it does not regard New Zealand's state sector as being either bloated or inefficient. In fact, one of its analysts said, generally we look at the government in New Zealand as being relatively small and compared to its peers quite efficient. So one has to wonder exactly what the problem is that the government is trying to solve. Now, it may, I know, a minor detail like evidence, as my colleague Charles Chauvel points out, but I would have thought that the government at the moment would be trying its damnedest to get into Standard & Poor's good books. But again, it's just completely overlooked what Standard & Poor's had to say. The government knows best, and it's got its ideology that it has to follow. And that really, at the end of the day, is what this bill is all about. I think most of the arguments about where this bill is lacking have been reasonably well traversed by my colleagues in the Labor Party, and I appreciate the excellent contribution from Kevin Haigh from the Green Party as well. Mr. Speaker, we do understand that governments do not have a bottomless pot of gold, and decisions have to be made about where a government's priorities lie. And that ultimately actually is what this bill is all about. It's about priorities. And we know that the government doesn't prioritise mental health, and it doesn't prioritise addiction treatment. We don't know that just from this bill, although what this does is to disestablish the Mental Health Commission prematurely, and also to disestablish the Alcohol Advisory Council of New Zealand. But we already knew that because where once the government had targets for mental health and addiction treatment, it no longer does. It no longer has those targets because neither of those things are on the government's health priorities. And so we know full well from the government's own lexicon, if you will, that mental health and addiction treatment are not a priority to this government. And the result of the removal of both of those from the government's list of health priorities is that DHBs have, in many cases, not universally across the country, but in many cases, have cut funding to services, both mental health services and addiction treatment services. And that is because the DHBs have to follow the priorities that are set by the government. They will make their decisions based on what the government is going to mark them on. And unfortunately, mental health treatment and addiction services do not list on the government's league tables. They are not, the outcomes and the effectiveness of those treatment services are not published in our daily newspapers quarterly, as are some other things. And therefore the district health boards, quite understandably, have retracted their funding back to the ring-fence funding that is available, and Kevin Haig even indicated that in some cases beyond that, and in fact have found ways to divert the ring-fence funding into other areas, because that is where the government's priorities lie. And some District Health Board chief executives and board chairs probably feel as though their job is on the line, depending on how they measure up according to those things that are the government's priorities. So I suppose it comes as no great surprise that this piece of legislation finds its way into the House and that the government is actually legislating out of existence both the Alcohol Advisory Council of New Zealand and the Mental Health Commission. Both of those are considered to be, I suppose, by many people, the poor cousins of the health system. Mental health is the poor cousin of the health system. Addiction treatment is often the poor cousin of the poor cousin. And this legislation, I suppose, reinforces that view. So we see plans by the government to bury the country's alcohol watchdog within the new Health Promotion Agency as being contrary to the advice that we have heard from the clinicians who are working at the coalface. They see the usurping, I suppose, of ALAC's role into a broader health promotion agency, which, as positive as that concept is, as undermining the focus that we need in New Zealand, both on the health promotion aspects of alcohol addiction and alcohol misuse, but also on the treatment side. And it seems bizarre, frankly, when we have put so much attention onto alcohol abuse, when we have an alcohol reform bill making slow passage through the parliamentary process, that at the same time we should be removing the agency which is specifically mandated to involve itself in health promotion activities and in education activities around the sensible use of alcohol and reducing the harms associated with alcohol. It just seems counterintuitive, given how important that issue is seen by the public in New Zealand. So that's one aspect. ALAC's gone. Mental Health Commission, on the other hand, is also going. It was supposed to be around until 2015. Mental health is, as I suppose, unfinished business in the health system. The blueprint was an excellent step forward. It brought mental health up to the level of acknowledgement in the health system that it needed. But the job certainly isn't done. We've done a lot over the last 15 years or so to focus on the top the 3% of New Zealanders whose mental health needs are most acute. But we need to look beyond that into the 20% of New Zealanders who at some point in any given year actually have need for mental health services. Now this sends completely the wrong signal.
Order. Honourable members, there's too much background noise. It's discourteous to the Speaker. If people want to have private conversations, then they're welcome to do so. But it's usually reserved for outside of the lobbies. I call the Honourable Member Ian Lees-Galloway.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Closing the Mental Health Commission 3 years earlier than it was supposed to be closed off sends completely the wrong signal to the health system about where mental health services should actually lie in the list of priorities for district health boards. And I suppose that again is reflective of how seriously the government takes mental health and addiction treatment services. So with that, Mr Speaker, I want to reiterate what my colleagues have said. Labour is opposed to this bill. We will work constructively in the Select Committee to try and improve the bill, but frankly I'd be very surprised if we can improve it to the point where Labour would find itself in a position to support it.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. As many of that opinion will please say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Party vote called for. The clerk will please conduct a party vote. Thank you.
New Zealand National.
57 votes in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
42 votes opposed.
Green Party.
9 opposed.
ACT New Zealand.
5 in favour.
Maori Party. Progressive.
1 opposed.
United Future.
1 vote in favour.
Mana.
1 opposed.
Thank you. Honourable members, the ayes are 67, the noes are 53. The Crown Entities Reform Bill is agreed to first reading.
Crown Entities Reform Bill, first reading.
I call the Honourable Minister Paula Bennett.
I move that the Crown Entities Reform Bill be considered by the Government Administration Committee.
The question is the motion be agreed to. All those in favour please say aye. The contrary, no. The ayes have it. I therefore call on Government Order of the Day